An example of this clientelism was in countries like Ecuador, the total elimination of taxes on medicines and newsprint, a privilege in direct contradiction with their condition of private for-profit businesses. Our media like to say that they are free press. Perhaps, for sure, before our government, they were free of taxes press. Of course, when our government forced these businesses to pay taxes and duties on imported newsprint, they call this an attack on freedom of speech. Other examples of this clientelism and media logic in policy and in politics are countries like Guatemala, where journalists have even been granted a special court jurisdiction. Another point for debate. The first one, rule of law versus rule of opinion. Another point for debate. Should media be the counterpower of governments as they frequently define themselves? In this case, we should ask ourselves, what kind of legitimacy could a political actor have in democracy when his only virtue was having money to buy a printing press? If they like balance of power so much, what is the counterpower of the major powers that be on Latin America? The media. If they are indeed the counterpower, wouldn't a basic sense of decency demand them to express their political position in such an explicit manner that readers, viewers, or listeners can clearly see that such media outlets are not informing, but instead practicing politics? However, the real debate is whether or not the media should participate in politics. When defining themselves as a counterpower, they are defining themselves as a political actor or actors. What is worse, they are only the counterpower of some political parties. To others, they are just shameless accomplices, because at least in Latin America, the media have always been against progressive governments. A clear evidence of this is to recognize the role of the Chilean media in the fall of Salvador Allende and in Pinochet's dictatorship. It is even funny. They define themselves as the counterpower, that is, as political actors. However, they do not tolerate a political response. If the media defame, misinform, or slander our governments, it is called freedom of speech. If a president dares to answer back, it is an attack against freedom of speech. This means that some people have more freedom than others. Felix Ortega, a Spanish sociologist, said not so long ago that over time, and when assuming a role that is not theirs, the media have tended to undermine the basis of political legitimacy that democratic governments require. At the same time, they have greatly affected the guidelines of coexistence and cohesion of society. Frequently, the media have been considered to be the fourth power that Montesquieu forgot. The problem is that it is a power without a counterpower, with no democratic legitimacy, that is handling something as essential as information, and being private businesses defending not common well-being, but in individual interest, well, is a very dangerous for power. Another element for debate is whether or not information can be discretional. This might sound trivial, given the North American media tradition that considers this possibility unacceptable. But in Latin America, the media think that because they are private businesses, they can decide discretionally what to inform and what not to inform to the public, a decision that is the closest thing to manipulation. Sometimes this reaches incredible extremes. In Venezuela, after the attempted coup in April 2002, once President Chavez was restored to his rightful position of authority due to pressure from the Venezuelan people, private television networks who opposed the government were showing cartoons. Another point of debate is something that is popular in Ecuador these days, due, I repeat, to a lawsuit I won against the nation's largest newspaper. Whether or not slander should be penalized with prison time. This slander is a type of offense committed when speech is abused. Every country's laws must be aligned with its own principles, values, visions, history, culture, etc. Just as many people believe prison time for injurious behavior is unacceptable, for us, for instance, death penalty is unacceptable. And the death penalty is even rejected by the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights. Thus, it is important to recognize that there is not one set of laws for all. In this as well, we can certain neocolonialism. I believe the key problem is the ethical and technical contradiction of private, for-profit businesses and political and group interests that supply an indispensable public good for society, information. From this core problem comes the need to ensure a more democratic approach to ownership of the privately owned media and to ensure the autonomy of the media from these vested interests. To create a larger number of media, not driven by market forces, that is, not-for-profit media and public sector media. And collective action by means of adequate regulation striving to align market-driven media corporations with social objectives. That is, guaranteeing the right to receive accurate, proven, timely, contextualized, plural information without prior censorship and with subsequent liability, as written in Article 18 of our Constitution.